Did you find that your Farscape experience gave you visibility or kept you from the visibility of the public?
That's an interesting question. We felt that we were working in a vacuum on Farscape and that people thought we were all suffering from some sort of group delusion of employment because the network, the local network who had purchased a percentage of the show to air it there, wouldn't commit to an air date. So the show was starting to air in New Zealand and other territories and was obviously on Sci-Fi Channel. But we had no real visceral connection to that or no real understanding of it because we weren't meeting people who were watching it. We weren't seeing it ourselves. And it's still bizarre to me as an actor, I think. I'm on television sometimes and it really doesn't sink in. I go to work, I do my job, and it's partly because I think we worked on Farscape for so many years, not seeing it on television around us and not having people in the street recognizing us and talking to us about it. I feel like I have, in a way, an ordinary job, and I get very surprised now in the States when I'm walking around in LA and people say, oh, you were in Pitch Black and you were in whatever, and I just forget that there's that public aspect to the job, which before with Farscape never really, that issue never surfaced.
Changing from Farscape, Paul Goddard managed to get you to sing on his CD, and Move and Groovy were both really wonderful songs. Any chance of more in the future?
Paul, I mean, actors always faff about on set, we'll sing and we'll tell jokes and we'll do whatever, and you realise that people do have other skills beyond what they've been specifically, asked to do on any given show. And it was obvious to me that Paul had, he's an amazing actor and he's very well known in the theatre community, and my mother knew his work, and when my mother's friends met him at our engagement party, my husband and mine's engagement party, oh, is that Paul Goddard? So Paul had said to me, just from your speaking voice, Claudia, I know that I suspect that you can sing, and we would sing on set together occasionally, but it was a very personal thing for me singing, and I'd lost my sort of nerve singing, and I didn't really want to do it anymore, and he sort of coaxed me out of the cupboard with that one, and my voice was sort of very rough and very green again, and he said, well, it's more the sort of the timbre and the quality of your voice that I'm after than any specific sort of technical, vocal skills at this point. I said, well, that's all you're getting, babe. Ain't no skills anymore. But it gave me a little bit more courage, and I realised that I'd missed music, and the fans had been asking, when are we going to hear you sing? When are we going to hear you sing? And I just sort of plucked up the courage to learn 3 chords on a guitar and accompany myself at a convention, and that was nerve-wracking for me, and it was really, I like to put myself in a situation where I'm not feeling entirely confident, because it's really good to sort of, I feel it's important to push myself and make sure I take myself outside the box and take bigger risks, and so it was good to do that. And I'd love to do a musical film. I think that would be something I'd definitely love to do, so we'll see what happens.
That'd be great. That would be great. In your interview for the Scapecast podcast, you mentioned recording an audiobook. Mm-hmm. What is the title of the audiobook, and when will it be released?
The author of the talking books is George R.R. Martin, very famous sci-fi fantasy writer, and he's got such a large volume of work that they're doing, I believe, a 3-part compendium of all of his short stories to date, and the print will be released at the same time as the audio books, and people in the community are very excited. There aren't many female roles or female voices, so to speak, in a lot of his stories, and the producer from the Talking Books studio asked for me, and I was delighted to go and do it. I found the stories really interesting and way out and wild, and I was not familiar with his work before, but I found it really fun to do, very exciting, very dramatic, and of course with the science fiction cliche of impossible names to pronounce. That was the one tricky aspect of doing a talking book as opposed to reading them. I don't know how much he personally reads his work out loud when he's doing it, but those names were nice and challenging.